Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guests Catherine-Landry and Karen-stuth. And they're here today to share with us the new book, The Way of the Simple Soul. Now, Catherine's book has been described as an ethereal, mesmerizing read about a woman's journey of loss, soul retrieval, and how she came home to her own inner self. Karen is a co-founder of Satiama Publishing, which offers the best-in-class mind, body, and spirit books, wisdom cards, audiobooks, and board games. Karen is also the president of the Coalition of Visionary Resources, otherwise known as COVR, which is a not-for-profit trade association for the mind, body, and spirit marketplace. So let's welcome to the show Catherine-Landry and Karen-stuth.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you very much for having us.
What a joy it is to have you both here, and I'm so delighted that we get to talk about this new book.
Super. We're looking forward to it as well.
Well, and so before we get too far down the path, I'd love to learn, Catherine, how you and Karen started working together on this.
Oh, that's a kind of a lovely story, actually. Karen's company was recommended to me by a woman that I've known for many years. And when I talked to her about the possibility of writing this book way back when there weren't very many words on paper, she said, "Oh, you need to connect with a woman called Karen-stuth, and her company is called Satiama Publishing. And she also has the arm Satiama Writers Resource." And what happened at that instant when she said the word Satiama, I just got this instant connection. It's such a beautiful, beautiful name, a word, Satiama. And I got this instant connection. I thought, oh, okay. So I picked up the phone and I called the number, and Karen answered. And I just felt so much warmth and connection coming through Karen's voice over the phone. And I think that's maybe where we first connected, and that's how it started.
And so, Karen, what was it like for you when you first heard about this project, and how did you feel about it?
Well, when Catherine first gave me a call and said that she was writing a book about her spiritual journey and told me a little bit about it, I was instantly intrigued. And she originally approached me just to edit the book and to hire me for editing through Satiama Writers Resource. And I felt like I was exactly the right person for the book because basically I only work on mind, body, spirit properties. So if it's not mind, body, spirit, I usually will, send an inquirer to another publishing consultant. But I knew right away that I was deeply intrigued and wanted to look at the book, and she sent me the manuscript, and I just loved it. I sort of fell into it like a pool. It was a remarkable experience. And as I began to edit it, it grew and grew for me. I mean, the importance of it, the light around it. And so I was, delighted to be a part of Catherine's journey. And later we decided that we would publish the book together. And so that is what we did. And I was also really delighted by that too. It's an honor to have it in our catalog of Mind, Body, Spirit books, CDs. We have a lot of different things in our catalog, but I really consider The Way of the Simple Soul to honestly be one of our crown jewels.
Well, I know that's high praise coming from you, Karen. I mean, you connect with so many amazing authors, and this book is such a great read. And, gosh, Catherine, I'd love for you to share a little bit about the book itself with our listeners. We don't want to give too much of it away because, of course, we want people to pick up their own copy of The Way of the Simple Soul. But why don't you share a little bit about the book with us?
Yeah, it's a story. It's a story about messages that were passed to me by an elderly gentleman. And it's the story of how those messages were passed to me. And that was a very interesting point. He was dying, getting ready to pass over, and I was at his bedside. And at the moment at which his he was very peaceful. It was an amazing experience. And at the very moment at which his soul was leaving his body, I had this compulsion to put my hands on him, and that created a connection for a fragment of his soul, I guess, if you want to call it that, to latch on to me and hang around me for a while. And the reason it was there was because he had a message, a couple of messages actually, that he wanted to pass through me in the form of something written. And so at the end of that extraordinary experience with him, I went home and became very, very ill. And literally within hours became very, very ill. It was like a volcano exploded inside my body. And that began for me a journey of trying to figure out what was wrong with me, in the course of which I ended up going through every possible alternative healer, energy worker, shaman to find out what was going on, ultimately to discover that his soul frag, the part of his soul that had attached itself to me, was hanging around and causing my energy fields to be totally disrupted, of course. And he needed to connect with me. He had things to say. So when that connection, finally, I was able to facilitate that connection with him and the part of his soul. And that's when he passed the message to me. And he actually, he named the title of this book. He said, Right Way, Simple Soul. And then what happened, the second part of the journey for me was then to figure out, I thought I knew what he meant, but I needed to actually explore this in much more detail, and then to ultimately come to the true meaning of the message, Simple Soul, and what that was all about. And so that's where it all started. It was quite extraordinary, and certainly something I had never, ever experienced in my life before. And ultimately, I got the messages. I think I understood them, and I was able to write them down. And here we have the story in the way of the Simple Soul.
Well, and it sounds like from your book as well. I mean, when you talk about getting really sick, I mean, you were sick for years.
Yes. I mean, we have a wonderful medical system in North America, but it does at times move a little slowly. And so I started with my medical doctor, my family doctor, and we went through all sorts of tests, which took about a year. And all of them came back showing that I was perfectly healthy. And finally, my doctor said to me, "I'm so sorry, but I don't know what, I can't do anything for you. You're healthy. You're showing healthy everywhere." And that's when I kind of got catapulted into the whole area of, in desperation, alternative therapies and medicines, and the whole world of metaphysics then just opened up. And fascinatingly, all of the physical symptoms were a response from my soul and his soul's trying to get me to the point where I understood the messages. And once I did, and once the book was finished and it was all written out, all those physical symptoms vanished. I mean, vanished in 24 hours. It was just gone and have never come back. So it was really quite extraordinary.
It sounds like that was a process where you had to really dive into this metaphysical world, maybe something that you weren't so involved with before.
No, I guess I think you would call my life pretty normal before. I was, born and raised in a traditional Christian household, and I had a 22-year career in the corporate world in marketing, communications, and fundraising. I left that career at one point, and kind of my life. I was 50 at the time when I left that corporate arena, and I had the rest of my life sitting there ahead of me, and kind of wondering what to do, and thinking, what are my tons of options out there? Which one will I pick? And then this event happened, and that put me right into this whole other area of different dimensions and metaphysics and who we are and what we are beyond just this human self that we carry, which is fascinating.
Well, and as you were going through and uncovering what's going on with you physically, were there parts of it that kind of just fell away as you started to work on different metaphysical practices? Maybe let's say that you know, a certain illness, you kind of came to a realization, or maybe there was a healing that took place that allowed that to leave, but you still had these core issues that were happening.
Mm-hmm. One of the messages that was coming through from this gentleman was about the soul human relationship, and how the soul and our soul and our human side function together and coexist together, and they can either have a harmonious coexistence or a non-harmonious coexistence, and ultimately our body is a manifestation of our soul. Our soul is inside and around our body, and our body is doing what our soul is doing. And so if we don't have a harmonious relationship between those two elements, then we can have a whole lot of physical, mental, and emotional issues going on, and wonder. At one point from you, I was wondering, like, well, what is the matter with me? There's nothing really in my life that should be causing me, the external parts of my life that should be causing me to be so dysfunctional or sick or ill, physically, mentally, and or emotionally overwrought. And once I started to dig into this concept of the soul, it all started to come together. We all need to establish a connection with our soul. It's our most intimate self. It's in us, it's around us, it animates our physical structure. Therefore, we need to, when we establish a very, very close connection with it and can speak to it, and it can speak to us, then all of a sudden, everything becomes just more clear, more peaceful, and all of that functions through our physical body as well.
It sounds like it was quite a journey. And when you had that initial connection with that gentleman that passed, was that at a point where your souls connected? And do you feel that you were carrying any of maybe some unfinished business on his side?
Well, that's a very interesting thought. In fact, yes. It turned out that there were some he and I are part of the same soul family. The same soul family. And as many of us are, soul families are very large, and many of us will incarnate in the same generation or similar generations or close generations, I guess you'd say. And yes, so he and I apparently had connected before in previous lives, and in this particular life, there was a component in our agreements with one another where I was to be at his side as he passed, and he was to pass me this message, and I was to be trying to write it and put it out there into the world. So there definitely was a connection. Mm-hmm.
Do you still feel that connection today?
Well, he's passed completely. So at the time at which I was able to have the communication with him to receive the messages and kind of close out that part of our chapter together, that contract we had with each other, then he passed completely. His soul went into the light. Moved on. And whether it's coming around for any other people, it's not my path. But between he and I, we have finished our contract together, and he has moved on from me. Mm-hmm.
So, how did the experience of writing this book affect you?
Well, I think when we write is when we really, really learn. Because it's one thing to experience at a conceptual level, or at a visceral level, or just kind of fleeting energies and thoughts in the mind, or sense something in your heart. But then when you try to put that into words, language can really trip us up, because these essences that we talk about are way beyond language. They're just so far beyond the three-dimensional realm we live in. To translate them into words is where I found I really had to understand. So I couldn't just say, oh, it was this feeling I had. It's no, what exactly did that feeling mean? How do you translate that into words that other people could read and understand? And so the process of writing actually helped me to learn and understand way more clearly about myself and about these messages, for sure.
Was there something that happened during your journey that maybe didn't make its way into the book? Because, I mean, books have, a certain amount of room and there's a flow that goes with them, but it's something that affected you personally?
Well, I think the biggest effect on me personally was my shift from thinking about all these things in an intellectual sense, the metaphysics, the dimensions, the soul, the body, the human, the shining ones from other realms, all of these things, you can think about them in an intellectual sense with the mind. But for me, it's when all of that actually came into my heart and I started to believe that this was all real, that was real. What is human here is the part that's the illusion. And when that really came into my heart was when that was the huge shift for me personally. And of course, there's more to the message, which are coming out in the next 2 books. It's a trilogy. So there's more than just what's in this first book, which came through. And that was also an amazing learning experience for me to work through all of that.
So with that being said, who do you feel that this book is written for?
Oh, I think it's written for everybody and anybody. I think the biggest takeaway from this book, I would sincerely hope, is that people remain open. It doesn't matter whether you believe what's in the book or you don't believe what's in the book, whether it resonates or it doesn't resonate. The point is to be open to whatever comes our way. And if something's coming your way and it's not harmful, then be open to it. It doesn't matter how you were raised or what you believe. Just be open and see where it might take you, because it might take you nowhere or it might take you into the most amazing journey of your life, which is what happened with me when I just said, okay, I'm just going to be open to this. I'm going to follow the dots, going to connect it up, see where it goes. And it became the most amazing part of my life to date. And so just to be open, don't close down, stay open.
Well, and I love how your book really talks about bringing greater inner peace and joy into our lives. And it's really your journey getting there. It's interesting because a lot of people, they look for that to incorporate something like that in their lives. Do they have to go through a similar journey, or is there an easier way for them to access that?
Well, I think everyone's journey is different. It follows a different path. And, but I would say that the sooner you get in touch with your soul, our soul speaks to us individually with very individual vocabulary. So mine speaks to me in a certain way, certain things happen. Yours speaks to you in a different way, Karen's in another way. And the sooner we can open ourselves to that connection and create that dialogue, then a lot of the questions, like the what ifs and the what fors that can cause us pain, kind of disappear, because your soul's saying, no, I'm here for this, and therefore this thing that you're about to do or you're asking is actually not in line with what I'm here for. So you go, oh, okay, so I don't have to do that. So a lot of things in my life, it was like, well, I don't have to do those things anymore, because that's not part of what my soul is here to experience. And that's where the peace and the calm comes through. And so learning to listen to your soul's voice, that's really the key.
So I've got a question here for Karen, as the editor and publisher of this book, when you were going through the book and really kind of reading it and going through it, how was that experience for you?
Well, anytime I am given a manuscript to read or read and edit, it's a fresh adventure, no matter what it's about. But some of them just turn out to be books that I'm, moving commas around, or, revising paragraphs, or maybe, moving sections from here to here. This book was pretty different. It really spoke to me from the beginning. And I ended up writing the foreword to the book, and was pleased to do so, as one of the things that I realized as I began to read the manuscript, and then, ended up going through it 3 or 4 times, was that I've been hearing my own soul's voice my whole life and not really recognizing it as that, I felt that it was maybe my angels or my guides talking to me, or, some other, source of information. But I really realized, the more I read the book, that, I'd been having that same experience my whole life and not really understanding what it was. And since reading the book, I have a much deeper relationship with my own soul, that I do think of my soul as my best friend, as Catherine invites us to do in the book. But it took reading the book to really cement the whole thing together for me. It connected the dots in a way that I'm not sure any other book might have done.
What a gift that is, to have that level of connection and to have that as a takeaway from this book. I think it's something a lot of people want to connect with.
You bet. I definitely believe that too. And we all very much need to be listening to, working with, making our soul our best friend, especially now when so many changes are happening on the earth, and the world as we know it is changing very much. And we need to know ourselves as a result of that in a very different way. And I think this is the conduit. I really do.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, and, Catherine, in your book, you talk about dreams, and I'd love for you to share one of the dreams with us and how that impacted you.
Okay. Yeah, there are quite a few dreams in the book. Let me see. Well, there was one that was really quite, well, they were all amazing. They all were very impactful. But let me just, there was one that I call The Whale in a Cage. And what happened there was this one took place when I was actually sleeping at night. Some of these dreams came to me in meditation. Some of them came while I was actually asleep at night. This one was during the night, and I was deeply asleep. But I remembered every single moment of this dream because it was very traumatic. I called it A Whale in a Cage, and the whale, when I first came into this dream, I was in this scientific laboratories type of room, very white, sterile, harsh lighting, and there was this magnificent whale lying in a cage on the table. And of course, whales are magnificent creatures. They're ancient creatures. We sometimes call them the record keepers of the earth because they are so ancient, and in their DNA they carry memories of all that the earth has gone through. So there's this whale in the cage without water, desperately trying to stay alive, and he's surrounded by what look like scientists in laboratory white coats, and they've got clipboards, and they're prodding and poking the whale to try and understand what this whale is and what it projects. And I remember at that point, I woke up abruptly and I was gasping for air, and my heart was pounding, and I sat up in bed and I went, oh my goodness, what was that? And that dream, traumatic as it was, sorted itself out for me to be an illustration of the soul-human connection. So the scientists in the dream, if you will, and I'm not dissing scientists, the lab people in the dream, if you will, were poking the body of the whale. But they were not speaking to the inner soul of the whale, where the wisdom actually existed and was. And so this helped me understand the concept of the human soul connection, that the human is one thing, our human structure, our body, and how it's structured, and our soul is another thing, and the two together create who we are. And that was probably one of the more traumatic dreams, but it had a very profound meaning.
Well, it's interesting in your book, you talk about how the soul's already a master, but it has to have this harmonious relationship with the human host, with the body. Mm-hmm. And that once it has that in place, it can manifest its purpose. And I think for a lot of people, they're going, how is that connection disconnected? And how can I get that into a place of harmony?
Well, the way I kind of see it unfolding is that the soul is a master. I mean, it's something from beyond the veils of this world. It's an emanation of the Creator. It's been perhaps going through many different types of experiences in other places. Coming to the earth plane, it's here for specific experiences. And I know we often talk about, we have a path that we are here to do. But what I got out of my understanding of when I was writing this book was that it's more that the soul is here to experience things. So you could have multiple ways to doing that experience. But so long as the experience is had, that's what the soul is here to experience. And so when I tuned into my soul, like, what are you here for? What are the experiences you wish to have? Then I was able to retune how my body functions in order that my soul experiences what it's here to experience. Now, I could still be in the corporate world. I could be out living on a mountaintop. It doesn't really matter what I do. It matters how we allow our soul to experience what it's here to experience. And that it can only experience those things through the human body, right? It's come to earth, so it has to do that through our physical structure, mental, emotional, physical structure, and in this three-dimensional earth plane. So all that we have here is part of what it's here to experience. And so when you understand, when we connect with our soul and we understand what it's here to experience, we go, oh, okay, well then my human side needs to be kind of doing these types of things in order to create a fusion with that. And I call it the soul-human fusion.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Catherine-Landry and Karen-stuth in regards to the new book, The Way of the Simple Soul. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guests Catherine-Landry and Karen-Stuth in regards to the new book, The Way of the Simple Soul. Now, before we left for break, we were talking about just the soul itself, and I have to ask you, Catherine, what was one of the most important things you learned on your journey?
The most important thing is creating the connection with the soul to get the dialogue going and to be able to ask questions and say, why are you, what are you here to experience? And have those answers become very clear. Often answers are not clear when we have other stuff kind of layered on top. In the book, I call it the muck, kind of psychic muck and emotional muck that's layered on top of us through our human experiences, our conditionings, or just our traumatic experiences that we go through as we grow as a human. And kind of clearing off some of that muck creates a clearer channel to the soul that's always trying to talk to us. It's always trying to communicate with us.
When people are listening and getting through like a meditative practice where they're just bringing themselves to that quiet place, what are some of the ways that they can actually hear their soul and discern that that's their soul that's speaking to them?
Well, I think one of the first things that, for me anyway, was that I needed to find out how my soul talked to me. What was the language that it used? The vocabulary tends to be very visceral and physical because we are a physical body. So for me, there are certain ways in which my body will shiver, shudder, tickle, certain words and phrases that'll pop out of nowhere. And they resonate deep, deep in my abdomen, not in my mind and not kind of from the outside of me, if you will. But there's something that's very, very deep in the core of me. And once I kind of got myself able to meditate and get into that deep, quiet space, I started simply to ask questions within that inner plane and say, soul, are you there? Who is my soul? Show me how you speak to me. And then I would start to get things happening to me and say, oh, is this what this means? And then boom, they would happen again. So over a little bit of time, I came to understand the language my soul uses with me. And I think it's really kind of, the key is the getting into that quiet space, the meditative quiet space first, so that there are no distractions, no chatter in the mind going on. And if the mind chatters, well, you just move it along and get into that quiet space again. And then listening, asking, noticing what's happening.
And I love in your book, you talk about how the soul is a being of purity and cannot cause harm. Because I think a lot of times when people, when they start getting into meditation and they're listening, they're not quite sure what they're hearing. But if they know that the soul is never going to cause them harm, the soul doesn't even know what that means. I think that brings them some comfort.
It certainly did bring me a lot of comfort because, we have so many voices and messages and things coming at us that to know that if there's a message coming through from somewhere and it's in any way causing harm, well, it's clearly not my soul. And therefore I'm not going to listen to it. I'm going to push it where else it needs to go. That helped a lot. And there was a bit of trial and error here. There were some things that I was misreading, and I had to, it took a bit of time. This isn't something I figured out overnight. It took a bit of time. It did.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think a lot of times when people think they're talking to their soul, they're like, well, there's going to be a lightning bolt and an angel's going to appear and there's going to be a flash. And I'm going to start seeing the other side. And I think sometimes they miss the simplicity of it.
I totally agree. I heard Karen chuckling in the background too. But we all think that. When I started on this journey with the shamans and the metaphysics, I'm going, okay, bring me the lightning bolts. Let me see. We all, and sometimes there are lightning bolts. There are. But over time, the soul. Sometimes the lightning bolts come from other sources, but the soul itself is lodged way inside of us, and I found that my soul, it's coming from deep inside me somewhere, not from my head, not from my toes, but deep in my abdomen somewhere, and I know that that's the soul part of me speaking.
Well, and why don't you weigh in on this, Karen? With reading the book and being so closely involved, how was it that you got to this place of harmony as well on your journey with the Way of the Simple Soul?
How did it impact my journey? Or, it was, I wouldn't call it a game changer. I would call it a game clarifier. So it, clarified, as I mentioned before, a lot of things for me personally, and made me, look back and realize, how often I've been not only hearing the voice of my soul, but that it was actually, interfering or trying to get my attention. And the example that I used in the foreword of the book, regard to my husband, when my husband was still alive, he had several episodes where he, just in the middle of the night, he would take on this huge pneumonia. It would come out of nowhere. And the first time that happened, I actually heard someone screaming my name and waking me up. And I needed to get up because he was barely breathing when I got to him. When I, got the light on and looked at him, his face was literally blue. And that was all my own soul. And it sounded like that someone was screaming my voice, like from Venus, from Neptune, so far away. The first time that it happened, I even doubted that it was really happening. I said, wow, that was some dream. And I turned off the light and went back to sleep, and it happened about 10 minutes later. But the second time that it happened, I actually felt something push my arm. So I was convinced there was someone in the house with me. I got up and went room to room, turning on all the lights, and I kept hearing my name being called. And my husband had gone to sleep in the guest room because he was having a lot of trouble sleeping. He said, I'm just going to sleep in here tonight. When I went in there and turned on the lamp next to the bed, he was almost, he'd almost, fallen into a coma. I didn't get there 1 minute too early, and that wouldn't have happened except for, hearing my name called like that. And, for years I doubted that it actually really happened until I read Catherine's book, and I thought, no, that really did happen. And it was all, part of a bigger plan, including the fact that she came to me with the book. I mean, I felt like the book was for me too. So it was very fortuitous. It was in divine timing. It was complete synchronicity. I feel very, very grateful for the whole thing. It will always be, a major signpost for me on my own spiritual journey.
Yeah, I think Catherine's book helps a lot of people make it okay when they have these unexplained spiritual events, that it's okay to have those. You don't have to, because a lot of times when we have those, like how you were saying, it's just like, oh, that really didn't happen. And a lot of times we kind of write off, some of the miraculous things that happen throughout our lifetime because there's no way to really explain it. There's no reference for it.
Yes.
Yeah, and we live in such a complicated world right now. Everything in life is complicated and complex. And to think that something as simple as this is actually happening on the inside, it's easy to dismiss it and think, oh, I just imagined that, because it's not complex, it's not difficult, it's not hard, it's not, and it is easy to kind of, one of the things that helped me was to keep a journal. Way back, years. I've got years worth of journals that I've kept. And sometimes I would think, I'm not sure that I'm I'm understanding this. I'm not sure that actually happened. And I'll go back through my journal and think, oh, you know what? There are the threads, and I wrote them all down, and there they are. And so this thing that is going on with this is real. And that helped a lot too.
Yeah. It's interesting when we go back and look at these journals, just the experiences that we've had and how important it is to make those documentations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's very important because sometimes there are some strange things that really are metaphysically strange. You think that can't possibly have been real. And then you write it down or take a picture. I had some strange things happen with crystals and water and stuff. And I took pictures of them because I thought, if I don't take a picture of this, I am not going to believe in an hour that actually happened.
Well, it's interesting. Once you start, having a petal unfold in your spirituality, there's always something new to kind of go, hey, look at this. You probably never considered this before.
Absolutely. I had a very wise lady say to me once, several years ago, she said, once you have reached what you think is the end, and you have learned what you think is all you need to learn, and you are in your light and in your heart, and you think you've arrived, she said, that's just the beginning. And that's when so much more that you have no ability to imagine right now will open up, and it just continues to open and open and open. And she's so right. That was such a beautiful thing she said to me, and I pass that along.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Well, and as I'm thinking about your book and the journey that you went through, I'd love for you to share with our listeners how your soul helped you with this profound shift that you experienced.
Well, my soul helped me understand that it was all okay, that I was okay, that no matter what happened, it was there, and it would be guiding me if I chose to listen, because of course we don't have to listen if we don't want to, but if I chose to listen and follow its guidance, everything would be okay. And doesn't mean that there would be no pain along the way or suffering of certain types along the way. That's part of what it means to be human, but it would all still be okay. And I've had a couple of experiences where I've been in a situation where I was at the end of my resources, mentally, emotionally, physically, and just about ready to explode and scream and yell and whatever. And the voice comes right from my inner core gut and says, it's okay, I am here. And just that just takes everything down a notch. And you realize that, it is okay, no matter what we're going through, no matter how horrible or how painful or how grievous, when we are living in our soul, it is an experience, and it is only an experience that we're experiencing, and we are able to move through it.
And I'd like to comment on that, one of the things that I think Catherine's book will do for its reader, first, I always tell people that you will not leave this book the same as you went into it, that it will change you. It will change you even if it plants the smallest seeds, but for people that are open and ready, what I think is special about this book and how it will impact your spiritual journey is that it will remove a lot of doubt. That doubt, like, well, that didn't really happen. I didn't really hear that. I wasn't really guided. I'm just thinking that these things are happening. And it's, teaches you to confirm your own experience. But I think there's an element of it as well that helps us to become more our observer self. And that's a very, very hard thing to learn to do, to step back a little from the world around you and observe it in a different way, to be, in the world, but not of the world. And I think that there are a lot of tools in the book that you will pick up just from her journey that are also very, not only affirming, but spiritually changing. finally, many people that have read the book that I would describe as, seekers, people that are spiritually thirsty may find their home in this book. So, in that way, it offers many paths that I think that people will find what they need in the book. They'll take away what they need from the book, as many spiritual books are wont to do. But this has a rather compellingly honest style to it that invites the reader in to come on in and sit a while and have a cup of tea with Catherine, so to speak, and to observe her experience and begin to see what happened to her in your own life. And in that way, I find it unique and remarkable.
Well, it's interesting. As spiritual seekers, often we work certain practices and we get to a place where we plateau. It's like, okay, we've studied this or studied, it could be Reiki or, metaphysics or whatever the thing is. And we get to a place where we plateau in maybe knowledge or understanding. And I found it really interesting. The Way of the Simple Soul allows people to expand upon that and go deeper into their practice.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's ever deeper. It's like it's a spiral that just keeps going and going and going. And I know I have, when I reached moments where I felt like I was plateauing, or there were, what else was I going to learn or do? It was hard at first, but I taught myself just to sit there and ask for whatever is the next thing that is best for my soul to experience. Sometimes it's really hard to sit and wait. I'm a very impatient person. It's very hard for me to sit and wait. Mm-hmm. I like to have everything happen instantly. But that in itself is a journey, just to teach yourself to say, okay, I think I don't know where I'm going next, so I'll just sit here and ask for in divine timing what is coming next. And
yeah, well, and it's interesting, in your book you talk about how this journey has really given you a particular type of freedom. And I'd love for you to expand on that for our listeners.
Oh, yes. What really hit home for me was that our soul is infinite, and our earth life is but a tiny speck of time in the infinite life of the soul. So it's just a little drop in the bucket here that we have on earth. And even if you believe in reincarnation, you're coming back over and over again or multiple times, it's still, these are little drops in the bucket, and they're important. But the perspective of there being a much greater story out there beyond this earth helped me to find some peace in some of the things that happened in my life here, and be able to look at them as experiences and to do what I needed to do to cleanse and heal them, and keep myself in a space of peace and to realize that there is joy at the end of all of these journeys, and to keep moving towards that joy even when a difficult part of a journey presents itself. The other thing that was fascinating was the shift in perspective that occurred for me when I looked at the soul and the soul-human connection and the intent of the soul. That each soul is here for a certain set of experiences. Well, there are 7 billion people on this planet, and that means that there are 7 billion souls here for different types of experiences. And each of them has their own soul prompting them to do no harm and prompting them to do what's best for them, and whether they listen or not, but the soul is still there. And so it allowed me to look around my world at the people in my world and the people in the rest of the world and say, wow, I find myself more tolerant, because I understand they're on their souls, they're on their own journey. And their journey may be taking them over here, and mine's taking me over there. But there's no reason for us to be rubbing up against each other in the wrong way. and creating irritation. It's just that their journey is there and my journey is here. And so there are 7 billion of us doing this. It's no wonder we tend to rub up against each other every once in a while. That's a lot of people on one planet. But, from a more of the heart-centered perspective too, it really helped to teach me more tolerance and understanding. I have my moments still, I'm human, but it really helped me to teach me more tolerance and understanding of all the different souls playing out all their different reasons for being here.
Well, with that being said, what are some of the universal messages your book shares?
How our soul is our best friend and our buddy, and it's the most important relationship we will ever have. And I mean that it really is the most important relationship we will ever have. That is what this has taught me. And I have lots of other relationships in my life. I have a husband. I have 7 children. I have parents and in-laws and brothers and cousins and all the rest. I have a large family and friends and so forth. But my soul is the most important relationship that I will ever have, and therefore I really need to devote a certain amount of time every day to that. And I found that time doesn't have to be a long time. It can be little brief episodes throughout the day, but that's really and that the soul is an entity from beyond the realm of this 3-dimensional earth, and it will return there after our physical bodies are tired. And those are kind of the universal truths that helped me as I was going through this.
I think that's pretty powerful, especially for our listeners that are looking to kind of dive into their practice in a deeper way. So why don't we start with Karen? Karen, I know that you not only have this fabulous publishing company and you do great work there, but you're also part of a really great organization that I'm a member of.
Oh, thank you so much for giving me a chance to talk about the Coalition of Visionary Resources. The short of that is COVR, COVR, the Coalition of Visionary Resources. And we are the trade association for the mind, body, spirit industry. Our members are from around the world, and we have all different kinds of people that work within mind, body, spirit: healers, musicians, jewelers, card deck designers and authors, publishers, vendors, retailers, radio show hosts like yourself, filmmakers, blog writers, people that work primarily in the mind, body, spirit industry. And, together we, as an organization, seek to not only, improve the standards within our industry, but also, through our awards program to bring forward what is new and absolutely wonderful every year, out to the world, so the world will know what's new in books, what's new in, in the products area, what's new in music, etc. So, there is a element of awareness or a mission of awareness, not only for mind, body, spirit, but also for the products and the fruits of mind, body, spirit as well. And this past year, we have added quite a few webinars and other learning opportunities for people that do have a mind, body, spirit business. Our goal is that every business, every member that belongs to COVR, their business will be highly successful, and we will work with them through mentorship, through training, through all kinds of resources we offer to help them grow and grow and grow and be even more successful than they were the day before that. It's a wonderful group of people, several hundred members, because our numbers change every day. I can't even give you an exact number, but we are growing like Topsy. It's an organization that's been around 23 years, and I'm very, very proud to serve as president at the moment. It's been a pleasure to do so, and I've certainly had the great opportunity to meet a lot of remarkable people, including you, Marianne.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, it's been such a pleasure to know you. And please share a little bit about your publishing company. I know we talked about it earlier, but I know our listeners will want to know about that as well.
Well, Satiama Publishing, it's a funny story how we got it started, and I don't think we have probably time for me to tell it, but we never started out to be a publisher.
We have time. Go ahead.
Well, we didn't. My sister and I just wanted to start a company that, through mainly as a blog, we would offer what we call the many pathways to whatever is transcendent for you. And we only had a two-pronged test for putting anything at Satiama. And one was that it had to be heart-based. It must come from the heart. It must come from a space of love. And the other thing is that it would not be exclusionary, because we don't believe there is only one pathway to whatever is transcendent for you. Everybody on the planet is on their very own path. There are no two paths that are the same. And so we wanted to offer a lot of different, ideas and thoughts, so people could, read and, find what resonates for them. But we don't post anything or include anything that's exclusionary. So if the thought system is, my way is the only way, my Reiki is the only way, my meditation is the only way, etc. Because we don't subscribe to that belief, we would not include it at Satiama. So that's where we started. And eventually, I started meeting a lot of people in Mind, Body, Spirit. And one of them was Dr. Stephen Farmer, who was a Hay House author and still is a Hay House author. But I had a conversation with him in which I said, in one of those weird moments where words literally fall out of your mouth, I said, well, if there's ever anything you don't want to, that Hay House doesn't want to publish, we'd be interested in talking to you about it, because I have a very big background in publishing myself. And then I told my sister, who was my business partner at that time, and she said, what, are you nuts? And I said, he's never going to call us. And of course he did. Then 6 weeks later, he called us. And again, I was talking to him on the phone, and he said, what do you think would be, the next great thing for me to add to my body of work? And instantly, without even thinking, I said, I think that we need children's spirit animal cards. We need a deck of spirit animal cards for children. And I don't even know where that came from, but he was really silent on the phone. And then he said, and I said, well, are you still there? And he said, yes, that's the project that Hay House had just turned down. And it is our flagship product. We've sold close to 90,000 in about 7 years. And they're just enormously popular. They're all over the world. And people are, using them in many different ways. Kids love them, but parents love them too. And so from there, we just, we started getting a lot of offers of manuscripts and things like that. And because publishing is truly my first love, we just started publishing stuff. But again, we always said, we're not really a publisher. But, one day, another person in Mind, Body, Spirit said, you need to stop saying that, because you are a publisher. And we actually recently changed our URL to be Satiama Publishing. So we're no longer Satiama.com. We're at SatiamaPublishing.com. But, I've just, been guided down my path in the same way that Catherine has. And fortunately, I never resisted very hard. I was having too much fun. I was blossoming too much, and I never would have stopped it. And, I think that the divine always finds a way to move us from whatever we were doing, corporate America or what else, into where we're really supposed to be. That happened with her. That happened with me. So it happened with my sister too. So, I just feel blessed every day to, have Satiama as a vehicle to be in contact with the world around me. And it's a blessing. It's a very big gift and a blessing.
Well, I know you, Karen, and my goodness, it's so great to hear your story and all the great things that you're working on. I'm so excited that we're spending this time here together. And Catherine, why don't you share with us where our listeners can connect with you and be part of your community?
Yes, I have a website, catherine-landry.com. just my name.com, and people can connect with me there. I post, things get posted there, and blogs and so forth. And of course, the book is available through Amazon and of course through Karen as well at Satiama Publishing. So that's where people can connect.
Well, thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Karen. It's been such a pleasure to spend this time with you, and of course to talk about the new book, The Way of the Simple Soul. Again, if you'd like to connect with Catherine, you can at her website, catherine-landry.com. And also, if you'd like to be part of the Coalition for Visionary Resources and learn more about how you can be part of this trade association, please visit COVR.org. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.